In the previous clip, I taught you about standard ACLs, and in this clip, I want to teach you about extended ACLs. Extended ACLs can match on both source and destination addresses, as well as layer 4 information, such as a protocol, including TCP, UDP, ICMP, and ESP. Additionally, you can match on the port number as well. You can match on QoS values and even multicast information, which means you can match specifically on routing protocols such as EIGRP and OSPF. I did want to point out that the specific platform you are using and the iOS you are running may affect what options are available to match against. Just like with standard ACLs, an extended ACL can be configured in global configuration mode on one line, such as this example ACL. Here, the ACL number is 111, since that falls into the extended ACL range of 100 through 199 and 2000 through 2699. Next, we have our permit and deny statement, just like with standard ACLs, but now we can define which protocol we want to use. In this line, I chose the IP protocol. After that is the source address information. And just like with standard ACLs, this can be defined with the IP address and wildcard mask, the keyword host followed by the IP address, or the keyword any. After the source address is the destination address. And finally, there are keywords that you can use to match against, such as the time to live or IP options. So, this first line is permitting any IP traffic that is sourced from the 10.10.10.0/24 network destined to the host of 192.168.1.1 with a time to live that is greater than 250. In this case, the G in GT means greater and the T means than, so the time to live is greater than 250. The next line denies traffic that is using TCP over port 22 from any IP address destined to the host of 192.168.1.85. Any traffic that matches this statement would have a syslog message created. I wanted to point out that the TCP protocol is configured before the IP address, while the port number itself is configured after the IP address. If no port number was configured, then this statement would match any TCP traffic from any IP address destined to 192.168.1.85 over any TCP port. Lastly, I wanted to remind you that just like with standard ACLs, extended ACLs, and any other type of ACL has an implicit deny any as the last line in the ACL. And just like with standard ACLs, extended ACLs can be configured by going into ACL configuration mode. Here is an extended ACL with a few lines denying traffic sourced from specific hosts within the 192.168.1.0 subnet, and then allowing any other host from that subnet. There is something else that you need to be aware of when trying to modify ACLs. Let's jump into the command line so I can show you what I'm talking about. If I enter the command show access list, you can see the access list that I just showed you. What is interesting is that each line also has a number in front of it. When configuring ACLs, whether it is through global configuration mode or through ACL configuration mode, the router will automatically create a sequence number, and each sequence number automatically increments by 10. This allows you to go back later and add entries in between other entries. However, this can only be done in ACL configuration mode. Let's say I want to deny one more IP address in the 192.168.1.0 subnet, for example, .52. I would need to manually create an entry of a sequence number somewhere before 30, since that is the sequence number of the permit statement. So let's choose the sequence number of 25, so the new statement will appear after the deny statement of 192.168.1.51. However, if I try to edit this in global configuration mode and type in access-list 2050 and a question mark, there isn't an option to specify a number. I can enter only my permit or deny statement. However, if I back out of this and enter ACL configuration mode, and then I hit question mark, you can see that I can specify a sequence number. So here I can add 25, and if I hit question mark again, you can see I can add the rest of the ACL, like I have shown you throughout this clip. So I'll type in deny IP host 192.168.1.52 and go into any IP address. Now if we take a look at the ACL, we can see that this new statement is between the statements 20 and 30. One more thing I wanted to show you. Let's say you want to remove an entry from an ACL. If you do that from ACL configuration mode, you can just type in no and then the sequence number you want to remove. Let me try that again. If I hit the up arrow and type no, hit a question mark, you can see I can just type in the sequence number of 25. So let's take a look one more time at our access list. And sure enough, the statement that we just put in there is now gone. However, if you try to do this from global configuration mode, when typing the no command, the router will remove the entire ACL. This is because the actual command is no access-list 2050. As you can see, once I hit the question mark, the router tells us that that is a correct command. everything after that is not considered, and the router will delete the entire ACL. So even if I type in no access list 2050 and then deny IP host 192.168.1.50 any, and then hit enter, the router will accept the command. But if I type in do show access list one more time, we can see that the router deleted the entire ACL even though I specified the entry. Early on in my career, I forgot about how this syntax worked, and it caused very unfavorable results. Some organizations copy the entire ACL to a text editor of choice, make the changes, delete the ACL from the router, and then copy and paste the updated ACL from the text editor back into the router. Alright, let's shift gears one more time, and I wanted to show you that instead of using numbers to define an ACL, you can just name it. This is very convenient because there can be hundreds or even thousands of ACLs on a device, and keeping track of which ACL is for what purpose could be quite cumbersome. If you type in IP access list, and then choose either standard or extended, and if I hit a question mark, you can see that I can either enter an ACL number that is part of the appropriate range, or enter a name, such as Internet ACL out. Once inside of ACL configuration mode, I can configure the ACL just like I could with a numbered ACL. Alright, in the next clip, I will teach you different ways these ACLs can be used, and also how to create other ACL types.